Felt like January was never going to end. February flew by, and all of a sudden, we are 2 weeks away from opening day. We have not even talked about the rest of the American League Central. Let's get some Central intelligence. We're going to talk Tigers and the AL Central, the Guardians offseason, with our friend Rogelio Castillo from the Tigers minor league report today on Locked On Guardians.
Tanner Bobby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So of Locked On Guardians, so glad you chose to be here with us for the next 30 minutes to talk Cleveland Guardians. It's the best half hour of the day. Don't tell my wife that, but we do enjoy talking Guardians with you. We got a great one for you today. We are bringing in a longtime friend, Rogelio Castillo, the Tigers minor league report. These guys do it right. They cover all of the Tigers system, and they're independent, and they are good people, and they work their butts off at this. So we're extremely excited to talk about the Tigers. We have a lot of people who want to talk division previews on Locked On Guardians, so we're giving that to you. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. And we'll talk Tigers. We'll talk the view of the Guardians offseason from the Tigers' perspective. When we get there, I am Justin Ladden. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. I was formerly the editor-in-chief of Guardians Baseball Insider, currently the News Herald, the Morning Journal, Prospects Live, and here with all you fine folks. And nextyearincleveland.substack.com, where I'll pitch something I got going on over there for you later.
I'm Jeff Ellis. I used to write about baseball. Now I talk about baseball.
What an exciting intro from the one and only Jeff Ellis. And we got Rogelio Castillo, as we said, from Tigers minor league report. Welcome on in, man. We're glad to have you. I think we've had you on with the draft show. Did you guys were on with us like last summer, right? Yeah.
You guys have been on our shows, and you guys will be doing the same thing. Well, if Jeff, hopefully he's feeling better later on this week. And Jeff knows Chris. They've been doing shows together for almost 10 years now. So
yeah. So check out the Tigers minor league report if you want a outside perspective or an independence perspective on the Tigers. Like I said, these guys are independent. They do it right. They work their butts off. They've had old friend favorites, at least of mine. As a kid, I was the president of the Ryan Garco fan club. And last year they had Ryan Garco on the show, and that was a fun one to listen to. Right around that same time, I ran into Ryan Garco at the captain's game, and I was waiting to get in. I think I was trying to interview Travis Bazzana, so I had to get there super early, and he was coming into the locker room, and I was out there waiting, and I was like, "Hey, Ryan, how you doing?" He had no idea who he was. He was terrified that I didn't ambush him, but it was out of the blue, and he was like, "Do I know you?" And I'm like, "No, you don't know me, but I was a fan growing up."
I was at a game in Lansing. He was there with his crew, and I was going up the stairs to get something, and I was totally in my mind goes, "Hey, Roger!" And I look, and I'm looking around. I'm like, who else would know me? And Darko was just like this with two chairs, like right there with his scouting crew. And well, I'll be on the jump in the podcast soon. So it's weird when a guy like Ryan Garco knows you by your first name.
Yeah.
Experience.
Where's Ben Francisco? His college and pro teammate. Has anyone had any Ben Francisco sightings?
Who does Ben Francisco work for? Got Grady Sizemore at the White Sox. You got Ryan Garco with the Tigers. Ben Francisco probably should work with like the Royals, right? Or the Twins.
If we got any updates, I'll do a quick look. He was hired by the Los Angeles Angels as a scout in 2016.
Oh, that's too bad.
So that's sad for him.
Yeah. Hope his career goes in a better direction than that. All right, let's talk Tigers and Guardians. Obviously, these two teams played, I think, one of the most fantastic postseason series that I've seen in a long time. I know from the Tigers' perspective how it ended, not exactly fantastic, but the lead up to that game was probably one of the better series that we've seen quite in a while. I think it's fun. I think the AL Central is a lot more fun when these two teams are rivals. I mean, the Twins are the Twins, and I have a weird thing about the Royals. I've never been a big Royals guy, but the Tigers, I feel like just because of the distance and the history of the two teams, like I just think the AL Central is a ton more fun when these two teams are rivals. And I feel like this is going to be a fun year for these two teams because they just did battle in the postseason. So I could see, I'm not saying things are going to get chippy. I don't want anybody to get hurt, but I could see these two teams, having some good fights this year. And I think the division's wide open, truthfully.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the division is wide open. And one of the things that what I like about both teams is the Tigers are starting to take a page from Cleveland in the sense of building pitching from within. And Cleveland's done that very well for the last decade or plus decade or so. building a farm system and building with pitchers. And so what I like, the teams are, and that's why I think why the rivalry works pretty well. In addition to Cleveland and Detroit, have always had this thing. I mean, whether it's through the LeBron era or through the Mark Price era in the NBA with Isaiah Thomas, Cleveland and Detroit have always had this kind of really good, necessarily, I wouldn't say friendly rivalry, but growing up, I was not a fan of Cleveland at all in the 90s when the Tigers went to the AL Central and Cleveland was routinely kicking our butts. And I sat there watching Sean Bergman and the likes of Felipe Lera getting bombed by Manny Ramirez, and like one of the best lineups I've ever seen in my life. And you know, you have Oral Hershiser. Oh, just get Oral Hershiser. Oh, that's cool. And yeah, so no, but in all honesty, it was a fun postseason last year. I just knew the Tigers weren't going to have I mean, the Cleveland's bullpen was so good, and the Tigers just didn't have enough firepower to counter it.
I remember that same era, just to go back to Old Tiger Stadium, when I couldn't get tickets in Cleveland. So I had family in Lansing. So we would drive up, stay in Lansing. And I just remember getting into a debate with a Tigers fan about who was the better defensive shortstop, Devi Cruz or Omar Vizquel at the time, or who was the better first baseman, Tony Clark or Jim Thome. Like, those are the eras where people it was a hard era for Tigers fans. That was when they were like, Bobby Higginson was a top 3 guy, and Justin Thompson, was that the lefties?
Yeah, Justin Thompson was the big. Yeah, he was the big ace. That was.
And it's like those were some rough years, but like I don't blame any Tigers fan for sticking with their dudes when it was. But I gotta say, I still miss Old Tiger Stadium. That's one of those that I loved. I know Justin says he doesn't like the Royals. I will love the Fountains till the day I die in Kansas City. And I'm supposed to talk about the teams, but I just want to talk about stadiums because the Central used to have just all the fun stadiums. The Metrodome just looked like a disaster all the time. Used to be the world of crazy stadiums. But, just to chime in here, I agree with you guys. It feels like everyone outside of the White Sox has a legit chance. And then whatever team falls apart first can trade starting pitching to the Yankees. And then the other ones will probably have multiple postseason teams come out of this division again. I think as much as other people who aren't Central fans like to dig on the Central, it's like that we have, it's not the unbalanced schedule anymore. It's not like teams got to beat up on only the White Sox. They had 3 postseason teams because it was a good division a year ago.
Yeah, and the thing that I find interesting about the AL Central last year is that among the team, it was almost like every team was constructed differently. In a unique way. Well, the Royals spent a little bit, and they were able to build out their pitching staff that way. Cleveland stuck with doing their internal thing and building their team out. The Tigers spent a little bit too. Minnesota got better via trade with the pitcher they got from the Marlins. I'm drawing a blank on right now.
Lopez.
Yeah, they did some trades of Pablo Lopez. So each team had a unique approach to last year and how they approached 2024. And now in 2025, and this heading into this offseason, starting this year, it was relatively, to me, at least, minus Cleveland, the trade, I just thought it was a little too quiet. Well, the Tigers made some, but it wasn't as active as it was a year before.
Yeah, I did not see Alex Bregman going to Boston. I had pegged him for Detroit or Chicago, and then he went to neither. So it was a very unpredictable offseason. We've had a running joke on this show offseason. The commenters love it too. We talk about how the Tigers signed Alex Cobb to $16 million, and we were just like flabbergasted how much the Tigers spent on Alex Cobb, who made 3 starts last year, made 1 postseason start, and that was the end for him. And we've brought it up so many times because that's just
one good game.
Yeah, that was the state of the offseason and the pitching market. So we bring it up all the time, and people are like, "Have you guys talked about this before?" Like as a joke. So we've brought it up, I don't know, 100 times this offseason that we're kind of flabbergasted by Alex Cobb. Like bringing Jack Flaherty back, obviously, great move for the Tigers, right? But the Alex Cobb thing has been kind of odd. But that's just how the offseason went. Like that's just the cost of pitching.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a little mystifying to me because then you saw some other pitchers that went off the board a little cheaper. And so I thought that Tigers based off their farm system, basing off guys like Kyler Montero, Ty Madden, Brent Herter, and kind of the part of the quote unquote pitching chaos that happened last year. I thought that they were I knew that they needed another starter, so Flaherty was fine. I was just surprised how much they would go with Cobb. But then Scott Harris does have this tendency to go with guys he's familiar with, and he had Cobb in San Francisco, so it made sense. I mean, Judge is still out on that because we won't see him until probably late May, maybe at this point. So I'm not sure how effective he's going to be, but it's just I put him in the back of the bin of guys like Ivan Nova, I'm trying to think of another Tigers starter that just they were there for a couple starts and then disappeared. And Matt Moore comes to mind too, as a former Tiger.
Oh yeah,
he was hurt. So I mean, this team in this case he even pitched yet. So
I forgot that Cobb already got hurt in spring training. That's how fast spring training has gone. I feel like we're flying through spring training. Thankfully, that's Jeff's favorite time of the year. I know he's going to be disappointed to see spring training end, but it is flying. All right, I want to ask Rogelio about a Jack Flaherty quote. I want to ask about the view of the Guardians offseason from the outside perspective. So we will jump into all that in just a second. Starting any kind of project or anything you're working on, get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. So if you're in plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order all of your products online. This is an easy-to-use website, and it's packed with tons of helpful resources, and you can get the latest product info to help you get any job done right. And they have a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 brands. So you're going to find exactly what you need. It's going to be delivered fast. It's coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service. You always get a chance to talk to a real person, which is always important when you're ordering these kinds of parts and anything, really. It's a trade for the pros looking for an extra edge. Their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage of this now, so now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com-TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5. You're going to get 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Appreciate everybody being here with us today to talk to Rogelio Castillo from Tigers Minor League Report. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you consider subscribing. Make sure you hit the bell on YouTube so you never miss a video. Auto download on whatever you're listening on audio podcasts. We're free every day, everywhere you get podcasts covering the Guardians every single day. And hey, if you want to be an insider, you want to get on the conversations, and you want to get news before it comes out, if you want to get access to bonus content, consider becoming an insider. That link is on your screen. It's in your show description. I just uploaded some new content for our insiders today. I'll talk about that at the end of today's show, but insiders are taking advantage of some bonus prospect content right now. We're taking advantage of the AL Central and Tigers knowledge of Rogelio. All right, two quotes. I asked one here. Jack Flaherty said that if he was still on the team, if they didn't trade him, that they would have beaten the Guardians. Do you think that's true?
yeah, absolutely. I think that said to us, we had him on podcast. At the end of the year, identified, and he just said this recently too on a broadcast, is that they were able to identify what went wrong with Jack when he went to the Dodgers, and he was talking about pitching angle and how it was off a little bit. And then you go through Statcast, and he was spot on, and pitchers and make them better. I think would have played advantage. I think they would have maybe gone the whole series, but I don't know. The Tigers off, like they didn't have any power. I mean, the power was gone. I mean, outside of Kerry Carpenter, who was doing it basically on a broken back, the power, like the Tigers just ran out of gas in terms of bats. I was still in shock the Tigers were at that point. So for me, it was still, in retrospect though, I don't know how the Tigers got there. I mean, it is still to me, but I think if Flaherty was there, I think they would have given him a good run with it beating them. I still think Cleveland would have won because Cleveland just because Stephen Kwan will haunt my nightmares, because every time Cleveland needed a hit, Stephen Kwan was there to say, screw you, Detroit. Like that, Stephen Kwan was such a force in that series.
Yeah, for a guy who was struggling at the end of the year.
I wonder how the Tigers would have been without Sweeney. Like, who plays shortstop if they don't make that trade?
Yeah, nobody. The answer is Andrew Navigado, maybe.
Yeah,
and that's even like a stretch. Yeah.
Yeah, especially now that they re-signed him, that's such a win trade. Like they got their shortstop, and now he's back. Like I don't know how any, even if he would have helped them with last year. Like overall, I think you have to agree that that was a net win because you get the pitcher back and you got a shortstop out of it.
Yeah.
And they got Dyron Lorenzo, who I don't think he
Yeah.
can catch, but I think that dude can hit. So
No, agreed.
that's gonna be. I think he's gonna be a problem as far as hitting goes. I don't know if he can catch, but Rogelio can tell us more if he can catch. But I think he can hit.
So I've noticed that when he was at Great Lakes, when I did see him when he was with the Dodgers, I thought he was just he reminds me of that Moises catcher from the Cubs, their prospect.
Ballesteros?
Ballesteros,
Yeah.
in the sense of like just bad framing, but wasn't sure what we had. But then him working with Brian Pena, the Tigers catching coordinator, the former West Michigan manager, I noticed in the Arizona Fall League he was much better framing up a little bit. His side-to-side movement when he first came over was a little stiff, if you will, but I think he's gotten better. I think he can be serviceable. Is he Salvador Perez? No, but I think he can be serviceable behind the plate. And I think that because Jose Briseño coming off a knee injury, they need it was a right move for them to get catching depth because the Tigers catching depth right now, or prior to that trade, was very shallow at best.
Now you got Dylan Dingler and Jake Rogers, so there's some catching depth there anyway, at least at the top end of things. Since you guys have such a good pulse with the fans, I feel like, and you guys pay attention to everything in baseball. What was your view of the Guardians offseason? Because I think like we've kind of gone back. At least I've gone back and forth. I think Jeff's been pretty consistent. I've gone back and forth where I'm like, I think I like them adding the pitching, but they're coming off a season where they went to the LCS. And they probably just rearranged the deck chairs. We have some questions about the offense. So like I'm in between. Like I think they're probably just about as good as they were a year ago, but I also have concerns about the offense. And I also would have liked to have seen them maybe put their foot in the water a little bit further in terms of coming off an ALCS run.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I mean, the Josh Naylor trade really surprised me. It surprised Tiger fans a lot too, because we have a Tigers Discord. And this first thing was people are like, well, what's going on here? And then when the Spencer Horwitz, I know he got traded to Pittsburgh, but when he came, I was like, oh, that's an interesting move there. And I was just wondering why giving up on Jimenez, who had a really good year defensively, and he was also a pesky player. So, but Cleveland does a lot. Cleveland to me is one of those teams that just. They don't make a lot of noise. They just in the offseason. They have quiet off seasons. I mean, I know that that's a big thing with Guardian fans that they wish they could spend a little more. You signed Tiger Killer Carlos Santana. I mean, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just to me. But I think that Cleveland has enough there that still merits the fact that it's a team that I thought personally that didn't really need to do a lot. I just thought they maybe maybe like the Tigers, the same problem, get another right-handed bat for some more power, maybe. But that was it. But I thought that Cleveland, I was also kind of curious how they were going to address the rotation too, and whether or not it was going to be if they're going to get another pitcher. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Cleveland had quite a bit of injuries last year, correct?
They did.
Just a few.
And the thing I'll say about Jimenez is, for all of his defensive presence, he was the second worst offensive second baseman in baseball last year. So that's with $23 million coming up on the books. I think that's the big reason for that one. But yeah, their pitching staff was they literally had the three worst starters in the American League at the trade deadline, like by multiple statistics. So they had to find some way to balance it out. And I don't know. So far, I don't know if any of those guys have proven that they are the answer. It's right now. Everyone and their mother is lining up to slobber about Gavin Williams. And like literally every day is a new Gavin Williams breakout piece, which just leads me as a Guardians fan to be absolutely convinced that all that's going to break is his body, because that's what happens when you are a Cleveland fan and someone gets this much adoration early on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I watched him when he was in Akron against Erie several times, and every time he just snap off just a curveball, or there was a curveball, or I forgot what pitch he had. It's strike, just wipeout stuff. But I mean, the question I had was in terms of like Luis Ortiz, who they got back from the Pirates there. is it kind of whole? Is it just guy who just eats innings essentially, right? I mean, is that what the allure is about Luis Ortiz?
I think there's some hope that like his stuff plus and some of that metrics like was much better than his hit and miss. So they're kind of hoping to. And with them, it's always about traits, like what they think they can fix. And I know they had Ortiz working on things. Same thing with Ciccone. It's they saw some things they thought they could make better, but I think there is a degree. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think there is a degree of like we think he can be a 3-4 and eat a lot of innings because a year ago this team had Tanner and then all question marks all year until Boyd stepped up for them late. But they just that lack of depth clearly traumatized management because then they spent the entire offseason trying to rectify it.
Yeah, and that's where I thought that. I mean, Cleveland's been their bread and butter is starting pitching to me in the last 10, 15 years. That's what I always know Cleveland for, and Jose Ramirez giving me nightmares too as well. And so that's one of the things that I think Tiger fans can that I was kind of glad it was over with was the whole Class A getting he getting the Cy Young thing and then the whole weird fake debate on Twitter with fans. I was glad that whole I know Cleveland fans thought he did put up a good year. Not gonna dispute it. But Derek Skubal put a triple crown up. It's kind of hard to come on.
Any triple crown, you have to win an award. When Miguel Cabrera won the triple crown,
disagree.
What?
Trout was better that year. Trout was better.
Because of the defense.
He played a more valuable position and was a defensive stalwart.
I
would. If you were building a team that year, who would you take?
I'd still take Miguel Cabrera.
Would you? I think I would have taken Trout that year.
I just because also the center field situation in Comerica is very unique. I know Mike Trout would have probably maybe collapsed.
Got hurt center.
Yeah, got hurt in center. Or pull the Sizemore when he was. I don't know. I don't know. But
Trout is on a very Sizemore path right now. Sadly.
Yeah.
Why?
I didn't say it.
Words hurt, Jeff. Words hurt. Okay.
I got a signed baseball like right there. It's like I got my Sizemore signed baseball like right behind me.
Two of the most exciting players I've ever watched in my life, and they're both succumbing to injuries. Thankfully, I don't know. Hopefully, knock on wood, we have Jose Ramirez at the very least. All right.
You just heard it. Cursed Jose Ramirez to injury this year by including him with those two players. So when if Jose Ramirez gets hurt, you know where to go. We're just going to throw Justin under this bus, right?
All right. We're moving on because I can't even think about that right now. That's too depressing. All right. We're going to talk. The Guardians and Tigers were a little bit similar in one way. We'll talk about that next. And we were talking about a stat off the air, more of a fact than a stat that might surprise you about the American League Central. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Millions of people agreed with the statement on Monday, and it is March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get on the action like never before because March is the best sports month of the year. Yes, millions of people agreed in the comments yesterday. You can look it up. That is a fact. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, who's cutting down the nets in this coming bracket. I can't bet on Akron to win the MAC, but if they win the MAC, you can bet I will be over on FanDuel putting some money behind them to finally win a tournament game. And if that's not your thing, you can actually even use FanDuel to bet on spring training games. Because I said March is the best month of the year. Spring training baseball. Everyone has hope except the Tigers and the Rockies. Or sorry, we're talking about the Tigers thing, not the Tigers. The White Sox and the Rockies. And you can also use it to bet on the tournament, which is the best time of year. So visit FanDuel.com. Get in on all the college hoops action all tournament long.
Liar. Tips. The comments were October. Liar. That was a ad read when you turn this podcast into a den of lies.
Go read the comments. Rogelio, best month of the year for sports. What is it? Why is it March? Yes.
You put me on a spot on that question. I honestly, I like October. I mean,
October is what our listener said. It was like 90% October.
Yeah, I mean, here's why. To me, you have the baseball postseason going on. You have college football if you're a college football person. You have NFL. It's to me, I love fall that time of year because it's not hot and I'm not, I'm a big dude. I don't have to sweat like that anymore. And also, it's just like the start of NHL is just right there, and just everything like the cyclone or just like a cyclone, just a whole bunch of stuff going on at the same time. So I don't know. I like October. That's just me.
My only argument about that is that I love the postseason baseball. Obviously, October baseball is great. March isn't warm. I'm not sweating in March unless I'm in Arizona or I'm working out, which whatever.
Yeah.
But you got 6 teams left in baseball in October. Baseball's winding down. In March, everybody with the White Sox and the Rockies, they have hope. It's spring training. Everybody has hope for the year ahead.
I take June over March. Let's say that one.
There's only one sport in June.
What do you mean? We have the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup, the College World Series, and baseball. You got 3 championships plus baseball.
I will die alone on this hill. I don't care if I'm the only one on this hill that says
I'm
March.
actually gonna go with Jeff. I'm gonna agree with Jeff on that too. Actually, that's actually a solid one too. I like June. It's hot, but it's not that hot. I mean, it's not that time of year yet. But yeah, I'll go with Jeff.
I think March isn't even top 2. I'm gonna just keep.
No, March is 3. It's like it's the distant, it's like in the swimming events when it's like United States, Australia, and then that country you can't think of. That's what March is.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Being the only person that's right is a lonely feeling. I have to tell you, it's a very lonely feeling to know you're the only person.
I'm just gonna sit here with my eggnog, taffy, and know I'm right.
Taffy's fine.
And is that an indoor soccer shirt you're wearing, Jeff?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, my sound dropped out.
Man doesn't even know what he's wearing. So let's go back to baseball talk. So we had to look this up. I thought this the other day, but I didn't know the proof. I had to go look it up. The last team to repeat the AL Central as a champion was the Cleveland Indians of 2017-2018. Nobody has won a back-to-back division title since then in this division.
Well, don't count 2020, right? If we throw out the COVID
year.
Because the Twins did win that year and the year before.
That's true. So we're throwing out COVID because 2020, no one likes to repeat 2020. So outside of that, I was kind of shocked by that. I wasn't shocked by it, but I was actually kind of shocked by it at the same time. So my question is, we saw the Guardians were kind of like the surprise team of 2022, and then they won it last year. But 2023, when they went out and they got Josh Bell and Mike Zunino, everyone's like, all right, they added them to the lineup, and they're going to build off 2022. It was a total flop. The Tigers, obviously, were the big story of the second half. Everything was going well for them. They're developing. They've got good pieces. Do you feel like the Tigers are going to be able to do what, they didn't win the division, but like development's not linear, right? So like every time you think you're going up, something happens. Do you think the Tigers can continue the progress from a year ago? Do you think that'll be, I'm not going to say easy, but do you think that it's realistic that they will? Because that's tough.
It's tough, and here's the thing too. They have a defense that's worse than they were last year because you got Gleyber Torres, who they got. I mean, you get better second half numbers defensively, but he's still a question mark. You have Cole Keith playing a new position at first, and I mean, of course, Spencer Torkelson's still right there as your DH or what the future still remains on what they're going to do with him. But Javier Baez to me is the X factor with all this because when he's healthy, he's a decent shortstop. I think he was playing hurt last year, and his defensive metrics probably indicate that. But you have Trey Sweeney there. But then another thing is like Jace Young, who just had wrist surgery, and that was kind of hinders power numbers. Is he the future third baseman? I don't think so. I personally think he's more suited for second base than third base. And Matt Verling, who knows how long he's not going to be back till like mid-May. So the Tigers are already starting behind the 8 ball a little bit. And so I think it really depends here on the next couple of weeks what they do in spring training. Do they make a trade like a guy like Matt Manning for a fourth outfielder? What are they going to do? And I think that's where I think that the defense to me is a concern in the infield. The outfield, Riley Green, I think is going to have a great year. I think Riley's going to step up. If Parker Meadows is healthy, I think he's a 3 or 4 WAR player. I think he's that much of a difference maker in center field. Catching wise, I think Dylan Dingler is going to get better this year. I really like Dylan Dingler's game a lot. I thought he straightened out what I saw in AA and AAA, which is just swinging at bad pitches and started making better contact. Reese Olson, to me, and I mentioned this on my podcast last week, I think Reese Olson's gonna have a beast. He's gonna have a good year. If you get that changeup going the way he is on the fade action he gets on righties, I mean, it's chef's kiss right now. And I think that I think the starting pitching staff is going to be the key. I think they're going to be the ones that are going to keep the Tigers competitive. The bullpen to me still needs a little bit of swing and miss, guys. But we'll see what happens here. I just think the Tigers need to stay healthy in order that they just need all that to stay healthy, and then Cole Keith to take another step forward to live up to the potential that I think he is capable of.
I agree. Healthy Reese Olson is definitely someone to watch. I think, when we talked about Gavin Williams as a breakout, like if we're making a breakout list, Reese Olson is on that list.
Absolutely.
I will be drafting Reese Olson in my fantasy league this
as long
weekend.
as he's healthy. He probably would have already
hopefully.
broke out.
Yeah.
I think if he had not gotten hurt at the end of last season, he would have been probably their third starter or second in that.
I would say
two.
Right.
Well, yeah, I guess two, because they didn't really have a second one even. But yeah, he would have been he did make some regular starts, but yeah, he would have probably been their second best starter in the postseason. And yeah, you got Jackson Jobe, who is going to be a nightmare, I feel like, very soon. I know the playoffs were kind of tough for him, but that's not uncommon for anybody his age. Real quick, you said the rotation. So we were having this debate yesterday, and this is more about like the breakout of Gavin Williams, and there's Tanner Bybee, who you guys saw a ton in the postseason too. How close do you think these rotations are? Because obviously, like, I don't think it's goes without question, like, or out saying that Skubal and Flaherty I think are the best 1-2 punch in the AL Central. I don't think it gets any better than that. I mean, Lopez and Joe Ryan are fantastic. It's close. How close do you think the rotations are? Because, like, right now the Tigers have Skubal and Flaherty. You said Olson's a potential breakout if he stays healthy. Same with Gavin Williams. Whereas the Guardians are kind of waiting, like, it's Tanner Bybee, it's Gavin Williams, and hopefully Luis Ortiz eats those innings early on, and you're waiting for Shane Bieber to come back. You're waiting for, I don't know, John Means, I guess. Whereas, like, Casey Mize right now is not really proven it yet, and Jackson Jobe will be up. So how close do you think those rotations are? Because you said, like, you feel like it hinges on the rotations for the Tigers. How close do you think they are?
Well, I think, and I'm trying not to get excited about spring training, because that's the biggest thing in what we do is trying to look at people objectively on spring training, because you can look at things and go, okay, what's different? Casey Mize is a splitter. He's throwing it harder. And one of the things, and he gained like 11 pounds of muscle in the offseason. And he's trying to throw a heavy splitter in the fastball, and that's going to play up well with this fastball. And that, I think Casey Mize, if Casey Mize is what he can be when he was drafted, I mean, I don't think that, to me at least, I don't think he's ever been healthy, fully 100% healthy at all. I think he's been hurt since he was at Auburn, and then he just kind of gutted his way through it because he shut it down in Erie. He's kind of, it's just like, of course, you have those, idiots out there, the invert W, and all that, and that's how he got hurt. But I think it just depends on also what you guys are going to get from Tristan McKenzie, because I thought Tristan McKenzie was going to be a guy that stepped up last year, and then I saw him pitching Columbus. Like, what the hell happened? And I was talking to Chris about it, and he's like, I don't know. And so I think the Tigers have a slight rotation, slightly better, but it's not by much. I mean, I look at Cleveland's reinforcements in the minor leagues right now, and there's a couple arms that I don't know if they're ready to stand up or not, but is a guy like Joey Contrello going to live up to the hype that when they got him from San Diego? I don't know. But I like the Tigers' depth slightly better than I do like from on the surface. You guys would know more than me about Cleveland's, but I think the rotation, I think the first two starters are good, but after that, I think the Tigers have a slight advantage, but just not by much. I think it's. I'm just worried about your third, fourth, fifth guys. The level of consistency.
I think that's fair, because I think it really
it's high
matters.
Ceiling, low floor with that rotation in Cleveland,
as it was a year ago, even too. Yeah, because no one knows what Logan Allen's going to be. He's had a great spring, but like you said, spring training is spring training. Although we're trying to act like Gavin Williams' breakout is actually happening based on spring training. We love to confirm in spring training, right? Like, we'd love to, things that are going good are going to be great, and the things that are bad we're not worried about. That's how spring training goes. I think it is true. The Guardians' rotation is probably waiting for the second half to really gel or to reach its final form. All right, you wanted to touch on some prospects real quick, just a quick prospect report, since that's what you guys do best. That's what Jeff and I are try to do best. We think we do best. I don't know. Sometimes I don't think we always do it as well as we should, but you guys do a great job of it. So the second half's going to be interesting. I think if both teams are in the division race come July, I think both teams have a farm system they're going to be able to trade from to go and get whatever they need if they want in July.
Who's that? Who's a big pitcher? Who's that? Is it Tugboat? What's that? That guy.
Literally big.
Yeah.
Tugboat. Matt Wilkinson. I think that what I like about Cleveland's system is that there's always somebody that comes out of nowhere. Like they're not on prospect lists. I mean, yeah, like you guys would know more than somebody else, but like for example, MLB Pipeline put Chris Rodriguez as number 10, which I thought was strange because he's not been stateside at all. And then meanwhile, we have other guys that people don't have. Like we have Rainer Castillo somehow is not on some prospect list. And I think Cleveland has a bunch of guys like that. A guy who I like a lot in your system, I know that probably seems a little odd, is Parker is it Messick? Yeah, Messick.
Yeah. That's a guy I like a lot, but in terms of offensively, I think the Tigers do lack an outfielder. Like they is number one, like getting the MLB number one pipeline. That's a cool thing, but to me, I thought the Tigers were still maybe third or fourth or fifth best farm system because they don't have an outfielder outside of Double-A. I mean, you have Max Clark, and he's still a year away from going. He's entering his first full season in High A. He'll probably be in Erie Double-A at some point, but at the Triple-A level, they have a bunch of guys that are like 4A players. And so I think that's where I think the Tigers I'm concerned with. I mean, Kevin McGonigal is a good, legitimate prospect. They have some infielder prospects that are really good. It's just the problem is that they're kind of a year or two away, and that's where they have a problem. They have Hyu Lee, who I love. I love Hyu Lee. I love Hyu Lee. I think he's a guy who can play third on a regular basis. The guy he will get in your face. But the problem is I also think he's going to swing and miss and a lot of sliders. So, but that being said, I think he's going to be an X factor too. If he can get off to a good start in AAA, that'll bode well for the Tigers and maybe allow them some position flexibility. Just like you, I agree with you, Justin. I think the Tigers do need to trade some of their prospects to get what they want, which is a nice right-handed bat, some power, because I think you can only Sky Harris has this a tendency to turn over waiver wire after waiver wire after waiver wire, and you can only do that so long. And before you have to get something out of it, and they haven't yet.
Wait, Jeff, did you just notice what he just said? He just said the two magic phrases of all Cleveland Guardians fans. He said, Tigers don't have an outfielder. The Guardians haven't had an outfielder since Grady Sizemore. We talked about this. Since Grady Sizemore.
And Luke Scott, I believe, still has the highest WAR of any outfielder they've drafted since Manny Ramirez. I think Stephen Kwan is up to 2, but Luke Scott, and then 3 is Ryan Church. No, they didn't draft him.
That's right, yeah. Outfielder. And he said right-handed power bat. I mean, Cleveland fans have been
this team doesn't need right-handed bats. They need less right-handed bats. They need lefties. Like if Jonathan Rodriguez batted left-handed, he'd probably make this team. Like
I agree. Yeah. I don't really care for Jonathan Rodriguez, but yeah, it's just so funny that the Tigers and the Guardians are like. It's just so funny to see those things because that's been like everyone's like go-to phrase is right-handed power bat and get an outfielder. So I guess these two teams
on the blue line. Yeah.
Yeah, another blue liner. Yeah, I do love the Tiger system though. I think they had a great draft last year. I was a big Ethan Scheifelbein fan, as Jeff knows. Bryce Rainier. I know they're not trading Bryce Rainier, but I loved Bryce Rainier. I love the kid from San Diego. Was it Josh Randall? I was a big fan of his. And yeah, you got Job and Lorenzo and Hyu Lee is really good. Obviously Max Clark. So it's a good farm system. I think it's going to be a fun summer between these two teams. I think, like I said, the AL Central is wide open. And I even said yesterday in wake of the Garrett Cole news, like the American League is just wide open. I think there's no favorite in the American League. Maybe it's Boston. Like that's all I can think is it's Boston and nobody else. Like it's wide open.
I think Boston has enough bats. I just don't know that the pitching is going to be a thing. And one of the things
I'm not sold on that bullpen.
Yeah, that too. The bullpen is where I have concerns with. I think one of my concerns or one of my biggest things for Cleveland this year is that you guys were talking about Lane Thomas. To me, I thought was a good pickup by Cleveland. Whether or not he's going to be a regular guy, I don't know, but I don't like it was I think it was a couple times last year. I'm like, okay, I get why they got him, and I know, like it's. I think the biggest thing that you talk about the wide open aspect too is we didn't talk about the Royals a little bit. The Twins too. I think the Twins have a better rotation than people give them credit for. I don't know if it's is it a I don't know. The Twins, I think, is the team. I think the team to look out, the sneaky team, is going to be the Twins. If their rotation lives up to the hype, I think that's going to be it's going to cause Cleveland, Detroit a lot of problems.
And there's a world where like the Tigers, the Guardians, and the Twins end up having the 3 best bullpens in baseball.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like
it's interesting how those teams are all kind of built along that line. But all 3 of those teams, I think, they've got some starting pitching questions. They have some depth issues. They have some health issues. Well, maybe not the Tigers, at least not that I can think of. Maybe I'm wrong there. But it's like the bullpen definitely feels like a big part of what all those teams are banking on.
It sure does. All right. I wish we could go a lot longer, but time does not allow for us on here. But I think we'll have to have Rogelio back on throughout the season. So listen to this episode, show him some love, let him know how much you love talking the AL Central and ball with us on here, so we can say we need to have him back on because everybody loved him this summer. I'm sure when we do our draft show, we'll have him back on, and vice versa. I know we're going to talk to him over on their side of things. Rogelio, where can they find all of your fantastic work?
So you can find us on TigersMLReport.com. You can find us on Twitter at TigersMLReport, and our YouTube channel, Tigers Minor League Report. And shout out to Locked on Tigers host Scott Bentley, big fan of the guy. Also a big draft guy too. And you can also find us on Facebook. Well, I don't know if people use Facebook, but we're also on Blue Sky. So we're on all the social medias. And you can find me on Twitter individually at Rogcast Baseball.
Yeah, check them all out. Like I said, these guys do it the right way. They are hustlers. They are independent. They cover the Tigers better than even some of the biggest outlets out there, truthfully. And they do it, like I said, they're all good people. So you definitely want to support them if you want to learn more about the Tigers. I know we have a couple of Detroit fans that listen to our show. They enjoy it. So hopefully this is a nice crossover for them. Jeff, you'll be on tomorrow solo. I'll be at the Cavs game. So, Jeff, What can the fans expect tomorrow?
I texted you like a bunch of stuff. I've been kind of hip deep in college baseball, so I'm gonna lean into that. I was doing a lot of time on some pitchers, and there's some interesting names. I mean, I'm gonna go off the beaten path a little with some of the guys I'm discussing, but I'm also gonna go to the beaten path. But I think the Guardians and a lot of teams picking at the end of the first round are gonna look at starting pitching because there's some nice depth.
Yeah. So we'll have that tomorrow to talk about. Insiders, if you check the Google Drive folder you have access to, my entire Guardians prospect ranking, scouting reports, the full PDF of the ebook is there. There's 50 prospects. There's graduated prospects from a year ago. There's predictions for the year. So all of our insiders can go check that out now. It's in the Drive. If you want to be an insider, sign up at the show description or on the screen. Email the show at loguardianshow@gmail.com. Be back tomorrow. Jeff solo. I'll be back with you solo on Thursday, and we'll get back together for a fantastic episode on Friday. Thanks to Rogelio for coming on. Jeff, tell him what to do.
Follow Rogelio and make sure you're downloading our show every day. Do your part. It's free to like and do all that stuff. If you are listening, I just not clicked the end video at the same time there. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you to all of our everydayers. John is still our #1 YouTube commenter. So
shout out to Chuck.
And thank you all, and go Guardians, go.